How have you been? Hope you've been keeping safe through all of this madness in the last few months.
Yeah, look, I've been doing well. Just trying to stay busy and trying to keep active, both mentally and physically, and trying to do what we can to prepare for the upcoming season.
Now, have you guys been allowed back in the facility, or are y'all still waiting to figure out if coaches are coming back or not in the next few weeks?
Look, Sean mentioned to us in a meeting the other day that he does not foresee us coming back into the office until training camp. I know there's been some talk around the league of some other teams beginning to have their coaches show back up into the office, but that's really not part of the plan as far as Coach Payton is concerned. And so we're really just handling everything that we can remotely. And I think at this time of year, I think if the players were in, I think it would be maybe a little bit different story. But I think we can get a lot of things accomplished being able to work remotely.
Dennis, if I could just maybe get obviously one of the bigger topics out of the way. Everything last week that unfolded with Drew and DeMario and Malcolm and the entire situation. I know that you're not going to divulge obviously too much of what happened on the virtual call, but just how it unfolded, where you all are now, and how you're handling it as a team going forward.
Well, look, I think the fact that we've got a veteran team, I think, allows us to handle these types of situations a lot better. Certainly, I think the thing that's evident is that there has to be communication in our country, and communication really is a two-way street. To be able to have effective communication, somebody has to be willing to speak, but somebody has to be willing to listen. And I think that's where we're at right now. Obviously, these are challenging times that we're dealing with in our country. And we've got to do whatever is necessary to make sure that we solve some of the issues that we're dealing with.
Yeah, I was curious. I was thinking today just of how you guys have had to adapt to not having the players in person. And so trying to coach and do installations through all these Zoom meetings, what's maybe the most unique way of coaching or different way of coaching or teaching that you've seen in the last few months? I'm sure people have gotten pretty creative, and that's probably cool to see.
Well, look, I think that coaches have had to adapt and embrace technology, and so look, I myself have not held any meetings with the players. I have been on a lot of calls with other coaches, the position coaches, in dealing with some of these players. And I think our coaches have really done a good job of utilizing the technology that's available to us. The fact that we're able to have a classroom setting and be able to watch the video, I think has been very impressive. The ability of the coaches to utilize the drawing tools on the video has really been impressive. And look, I guess probably the players would be the ones that would be able to answer that question better in terms of the ability to learn in that type of environment.
Dennis, have you given much thought to what it takes to get over the hump after last year, or is that just something that's in the rearview mirror and you're
Mike, do you think you could give us,
1 year?
this group, just a brief recap of what the Friday call was about and any?
Are we good now? I think we got somebody muted there. Yeah, you talked about getting over the hump, and have we given it much thought? Well, certainly we've given it a lot of thought. The thing about getting over the hump is we don't get to start where we finished off last season. we've got to start totally anew. And so it's more than just, getting over the hump. But one of the things that we talked about as a defensive staff is we really don't need to do anything different. We just need to do what we're doing better. And that includes coaching it better, teaching it better, having a better understanding of the communication. And so that's really the fundamentals and techniques that we're going to utilize to accomplish our jobs. Those are really the things that we're focused on. It's going to be less about scheme and not nearly as much about what we play and more about how we play.
Hey Dennis, are you excited to work with Malcolm Jenkins again? And just in your experience with him, what does he bring to a team?
Well, look, I was here when we drafted Malcolm back in 2009. I think the thing that Malcolm brings a sense of leadership. Malcolm brings a intelligence level to our defense, especially from a back end perspective. So I'm excited about working with Malcolm. I thought Malcolm was an outstanding player when he was here before. He continued that on in Philadelphia, and I'm anxious to get an opportunity to work with him again.
Does having Janoris Jenkins for a full season, having an off season to kind of prepare with him in mind, can you guys be a little bit more aggressive in coverage with him, or does he change anything about maybe how you approach that?
Well, look, I don't know that anything really changes in terms of our approach. Certainly, I think the more opportunity that we have to be around him and to evaluate him, the easier it is for us to really determine all the things that he really does well and try to put him in those positions as much as we can. Certainly, we feel like he's got really good man coverage talent. And so when you do have corners of that nature with he and Marshawn both, it does lend the ability to play maybe a little bit more man-to-man. And so that'll be something that as we go through training camp and get through some of these preseason games, certainly we'll utilize that time to evaluate, look, not only Janoris, but everybody on our defensive football team to find out the things that we can really do well. And those will be the things that we want to stick to as our bread and butter throughout the season.
Can you divulge anything about how you get all your safeties on the field? You got three guys that probably deserve to play a lot. I mean, are you guys going to play a lot of three safety, or have you thought about it?
Yeah, look, I thought a lot about it. I think, well, certainly when you look defensively, at least for us, and I would say this is a trend throughout our league. We played, 70-something%. I don't know the exact number, but 70-something% of our snaps were played in a sub defense with 5 defensive backs on the field. Now, whether that's 3 safeties and 2 corners, or whether that's 3 corners and 2 safeties, certainly that remains to be seen. I think when you look at some of the depth that we do have at the safety position, I think that bodes well for us. And we've got some guys that have some flexibility in terms of what they can do. Guys like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, guys like P.J. Williams that have the ability to play in the slot on wide receivers, as well as play and succeed at a traditional safety position. So certainly we feel good about some of the depth that we have. And look, part of this whole process is going to be getting through training camp and getting through some of these preseason games, finding out exactly who we have and what we have, and then our job will be to utilize those players the best we can to give us success on Sundays.
Hey, Dennis, going back to Janoris Jenkins, how important is that the couple of weeks that you guys got to spend with him at the end of last year, or is the overall body of work more important there?
Well, look, certainly there's an overall body of work that you utilize to try to form opinions about what a guy can do or can't do. But there's nothing like the experience of having a guy in your building. And I can tell you just from my experience with him in that brief period of time, I felt like he was a real pro. I felt like he came to work every day with the intention of getting better. And I think he was a great addition to our football team. And I'm certainly excited about working with him again this season.
Can you speak about having Tom Brady in a division 2 games a year and how much extra study of all, Dennis, have you done looking at him and what he does in the off season, knowing that he's going to be in the way twice a year?
Yeah, well, certainly I think it was a great addition for Tampa Bay's football team. Certainly Tom Brady is one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game. So it's certainly a huge challenge for us. I think it's a challenge for us, opening up the season, playing these guys, because you really have a couple of things that you're looking at. There's the study that we've got to do of Tom in New England and the things that he was doing there, as well as studying, Bruce Arians and Byron Leftwich, their offense, their philosophy, and then trying to merge those two together to find out or see, exactly what we're going to get to open the season. So that'll be a challenge. That'll be difficult for us to deal with. But it's also a challenge that we're excited about. I think when you play in the National Football League, there's something about that competing at the highest level that excites you. And I think we're as competitive of a group as there is, and we look forward to the challenge. We understand that it's going to be difficult, but we're excited about the challenge.
Dennis, with all those guys with the position flexibility, how much does that open up your ability to disguise? I know you already do a lot of it, but do you feel like you have even more to be creative and create deception?
Yeah, look, I think that's certainly something that we want to be able to do. And I think having guys that have the versatility and the athleticism that we have, both, at the linebacker and the secondary position, I think will be advantageous for us in terms of what we can do. Certainly, the longer the down and distance, third down, 2 minutes, some of those things we can get a little bit more creative in what we do and how we try to attack the offense.
Dennis, I would imagine with this accelerated offseason, it's obviously going to be able to benefit, at least early in the season, being able to have continuity as a team. How much do you also feel like, from a coaching standpoint, just one's own ability, the cream will rise and be able to show, some of the better coaches just how they're able to prepare on a short offseason too?
Well, look, I had this discussion with the defensive staff last Thursday. It was we were on a conference call together, and I said that, look, this is the challenge for us. The challenge for us is how are we going to be better teachers this year. And I do feel like the best staffs rise up in these type of situations. When you face challenges, that's when you really find out how good your group is. And so I feel like we got a good group of coaches, and I feel like we do have an advantage over some other teams, because I do feel like we got a veteran group that's worked together but we have to be creative in how we go about teaching, because we're not getting all the same time that we would get if we had a normal off-season program with the OTAs, and on into mini camp and then training camp.
Coach, are there any elements to the virtual off-season program that you think might carry forth in future years?
Well, look, I think certainly there's some things that we can do with the technology that we have that allows us to really be able to still accomplish a lot of things, but yet be able to do it virtually. I think there was a lot of things in terms of the meetings that we were able to do with the players and the staff that I think we can handle those things, virtually. But I do think there's still a lot to be said about, one-on-one or face-to-face communication. That element, I think you miss a little bit with this technology, but I certainly think there's some things about whether it's Zoom or WebEx or whatever, that you can utilize those things to still get a lot accomplished.
Dennis, what's your guys' vision for Zach Bond, and is he someone too that can be flexible, maybe in the sub package, sub rush, or various ways?
Yeah, really, we love the flexibility of the player. That was one of the things that was the most intriguing to us about him. There's a vision for this guy being able to move around and do some different things for us. Obviously as a rookie, there's a big learning curve in terms of what he's going to be asked to do. But we see him as a guy that can play on the ball, a guy that can also play off the ball, and certainly we felt like one of the things that he really did well was affect the passer. And so there's certainly a vision in our mind of some things that we can do with him from a rush standpoint that I think can really benefit us.
And then you made a big donation to the COVID Foundation. Can you just talk about why that was important to you?
Well, look, I think we're going on 11 years here in New Orleans in two different stints, and this city has really become home to our family, and we just felt like that we needed to do something to try to help out our community, and we felt like that was the best way for us to go about doing that.
Dennis, I've heard a couple of people now reference their vision for Zach, but is it difficult to execute that vision, or to start executing that vision when you can't get like kind of hands-on work with them on the field yet? Does that change anything at all?
I don't think that changes anything in terms of what the vision is for the player. How quickly we can accomplish that vision, that will be determined once we're able to actually begin getting on the field and getting this work done. So certainly the vision, I don't think, changes. How quickly we get to that vision is really what we're talking about.
Sort of related, maybe not. How difficult does this actually, though, make it for evaluating some of these undrafted guys when the OTAs and mini camps is your time to kind of get a hands-on look at them and see how they kind of fit into the fold there?
Yeah, well, again, that kind of goes back to the statement, just in terms of, look, we're gonna have to be better coaches, teachers, and evaluators. We don't have the same amount of information to go off of. We don't have the same length of time to figure things out. So we're gonna have to be better, and that falls on us as coaches, and our ability to evaluate all aspects of the player, from a mental to a physical to an emotional standpoint. And so, does it make it more of a challenge? Yeah. But but that's what we get paid to do.
Dennis, if I can follow up on the topic I talked about before, how cathartic was the virtual call maybe on Friday without giving any details on it, just everybody kind of being together? I know Shaquille O'Neal was on it and kind of has talked about it, but do you think that was maybe a cathartic experience after, an emotional few days?
Well, look, I think this. I think the leadership on this team. I think we're all in good hands, and it starts with our ownership, running down through Mickey Loomis and Sean Payton, our head coach, on through our players. I think we got great leadership in our organization. We understand how to deal with adversity, and so I thought it was a great meeting, and I thought that our team benefited from it.
Do you think this might be the biggest coaching challenge of your career or anyone's career? I know the lockout was difficult because you couldn't see the players at all, but I feel like this year has brought an entirely new set of challenges, and it changes every week, and no one really knows what's going to happen come a month or two from now.
Yeah, look, certainly, it's a challenge, and really, look, I made reference to our players earlier this offseason, and just talking about the difference between how you look at this in terms of challenges and excuses. And excuses predate losses and not accomplishing your goal, whereas challenges predate winning and accomplishing your goals. And so this is just a challenge that we've got to face as a group, as an organization, as a team, and we certainly feel like that we're up to that challenge.
And Dennis, we don't know the situation with the fans yet, but if the fans aren't able to attend games, especially in the dome, how much does that affect your defense, you feel like? If you even thought about that.
Yeah. Well, look, I've never been in that situation, so I can't tell you how it's going to affect the defense. Look, certainly we feel like we've got a great home field advantage at the Dome. We feel like we've got tremendous support from our fans. And I know that it's a tough environment for a road team to come in and play in the Dome. Again, just like anything else, that would be another challenge that we would have to overcome. And so, our hope is that we could have a full stadium, but that's still to be determined. And if it's not the case, then we'll have to figure out how to navigate that challenge.
If I could follow up with that, is this maybe when you find out if like the mental fortitude of a player is going to be tested, potentially dealing with rules and restrictions and no fans, and maybe a certain level of maturity is required, and that actually goes into crafting a roster based on some of these challenges?
Well, yeah, look, certainly I think the teams that have more maturity, the teams that are a little bit more veteran and have great leadership, those are the teams that are going to be able to navigate this challenge of this 2021 season or 2020 season better than the rest. And so we feel, as I said before, I feel great about the leadership of our organization. I feel great about the leadership of our team. And certainly, I think that we're in good hands moving forward as we getting closer to playing football.
Would you have to guard it all against your communication if everybody can clearly hear every single word spoken on the field? Like, would you have to change stuff week to week, maybe, or?
Yeah, look, I think there's some teams that you would probably worry about that a lot more than maybe others. Certainly, that's a two-way street because obviously, if they're hearing our communication, we're also hearing their communication, and so we can utilize that information a little bit better because when we're on the field, especially when we're playing at home, like. It's very loud for the opposing offense to communicate, but it's also really loud for us to communicate. So there's pluses and minuses to that, and I think that's just going to be something that we're going to have to deal with as we go along.
Yeah, I'm just curious for you personally. This experience is like been being at home, being around your family more. If that's been kind of beneficial for you and just kind of I feel like during the draft I heard some coaches kind of reflecting on like it was nice being around the family more and this is kind of something you'd want to carry over. I was just curious if you felt that way.
Well, I think I think as tough as this has been to go through this pandemic as a country, I do feel like there are some positives that have been able to come out of that, and I do feel like. And look, I can only express to you my scenario, but I feel like this has been something that's brought our family closer together. Us as coaches, we spend a lot of time away from our families, and so bringing it back home and really having an opportunity to kind of sit back and reflect on what's really, really important, I think has been it's been refreshing for me as an individual, and I think it's been a positive for our family. So certainly, I think there's that aspect of that if we could carry that into some of our future business operations, I think that could potentially be a benefit.
Does anyone else have any more questions?
I've got one more on Malcolm, if it's okay. When you were thinking of bringing him in, to what extent did you see him as an evolved player who may be doing different things this time around, or to what extent did you kind of see him as a guy who knows the defense and can fit back in where he was when he left?
Well, I think there's both of those elements that were involved in the decision. First and foremost is, man, we felt like Malcolm was a great leader, and we felt like Malcolm was a highly intelligent football player. And so those were aspects that we really enjoyed. See, Malcolm, I think, can play the game within the game. He's not going to be – he's going to be a guy that he understands the whole concept and the whole big picture. And I think that viewpoint from a player's perspective can benefit the whole football team. So I certainly think there was a guy that had been in this type of system before, which makes it an easier transition, and a guy that we were familiar with that makes it an easier transition. But I do also think that if you've watched Malcolm's career, I think he's evolved as a football player and involved in an intelligent way that I think can benefit our whole entire team.
Great. Well, thank you for your time today, Dennis, for this Zoom call, and hopefully we'll see you in person soon.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.